horror movies. Not something you often associate with the PG-13 rating. Some horror fans might gawk at the thought of a PG-13 rated horror movie. But you and me and Yoshi, we know that there are some awesome PG-13 and PG even horror movies out there. And we're going to get into some of those tonight. Welcome back to Fright Club 2024 on the Ecto-Violence channel. My name is Alec, this is Yoshi, and today we're talking about my top 10 PG-13 or PG horror movies. This list idea came to me because I was thinking about one of my favorite horror movies, and it happens to be PG-13. I thought, wow, that's really PG-13, isn't it? Huh, what else is PG-13 that's really awesome? And here we are. We're going to start with number 10 and work our way down. Let's start with number 10. Critters. Oh, to have seen this in a New York City theater. Critters is one of those movies that you are probably either going to really like or really dislike. Personally, it's definitely not my favorite, but I think it's worth mentioning on this list specifically because it works as a PG-13 horror movie. You could show this to your kids if they're interested in spooky stuff. Number 9 on the list is going to be 1408. This is based on a Stephen King story. It stars John Cusack, Sam Jackson. Honestly, very underrated movie. Not a lot of people talk about this movie, although the people I know that have seen it all really thought it was interesting. I actually bought this one on DVD, and I don't know, I've really enjoyed it. There's stuff in there that is some of the spookiest, like, jump scares that I've ever actually seen. Like a jump scare that pays off other than the jump, then you're still terrified. That happens in this movie, and I really appreciate it. There's a couple things I would critique in it, but I'd have to go into that in a full review. However, I'm also a really big John Cusack fan. Number 8, The Sixth Sense. Okay, The Sixth Sense is brilliant. I don't care. I mean, everybody knows the twists in pop culture now, so it's kind of hard to be, looking back at it and thinking it's highly rewatchable or anything. But the first time you watch that, if you didn't know the secret, well, I imagine that you would have been shocked. Because I obviously had it spoiled for me by 50 First Dates. Easily one of the best M. Night movies, easily in the top 3 of his movies, maybe even the number 1 spot, although that for me that might be Signs, which is another PG-13 movie, but I definitely think The Sixth Sense is spookier, and I didn't want to clog this list up with M. Night movies. Number 7, The Mummy, Brendan Fraser. This was actually on my top 10 horror remakes list also. You can check that out here. Honestly, I just really love this movie. The Mummy from 1999 is just brilliant. It's solid. It's not the scariest movie, although it has some moments, but being PG-13, like totally. Get your kids into horror. Show them The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser. Number 6, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Now, this is a movie that traumatized me as a child. It's one of the first horror movies I ever saw any of as a child, and it was like my grandma's house. I was playing with one of those Lone Ranger, sets, the little mask around your eyes on a little gun. While this movie played in the living room and everybody else watched it, and I came out and just saw a few frames here and there because I couldn't handle it. The one that scarred me the most was the clown outside of the fast food restaurant trying to get the little girl to come out. I was like, nope, that's it. Can't take it. Horrified for life. Real quick, I did just launch a Patreon. There's a couple different tiers on there, everything from $1 to $6. You can check that out at patreon.com/ectoviolence. If you're looking for a way to support me, help support the channel, that is definitely the best way. You can do it right now. I'm going to start incorporating a thank you card at the end of every video. There'll be exclusive behind the scenes videos and photos. Every video that gets uploaded to YouTube will get uploaded to Patreon first as soon as it's done editing, and there'll be a monthly exclusive video on Patreon. So please go check that out at patreon.com/ectoviolence. Number 5 on the list, halfway through, is Tremors with the Baconator, Kevin Bacon. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is Jaws on dirt. Everything about this movie works to me. The effects, the characters, the setting. And for the purposes of this review, I'm just going to completely ignore all the sequels because I think this is a flawless movie. Tremors is excellent. And PG-13? Yeah, checks out. Nothing too gory. There's a few horrific deaths, but it's a classic. And you know what? We should all be watching Tremors more often. It's a great summer horror movie. Number 4 on the list is going to be Poltergeist. Poltergeist is a cursed movie. I'm going to have to do a video on that sometime, too, talking about all that. Just my thoughts on it, at least. Poltergeist is a movie I like to watch every Halloween season now. There's so much about that movie I really like and enjoy. The aesthetic, the vibes that it gives off. It feels like the household kind of vibes that I grew up in. And again, this is a very safe movie for kids. There's not a lot of gore. As long as they can handle some spooky stuff, they'll be fine. This is on par with Ghostbusters, although I'd say if you're a kid, this might be a little scarier than Ghostbusters. I don't know. I really don't. I didn't see Poltergeist as a kid, to be honest. And as we move on down the list, number 3, The Ring. The Ring is definitely one of those movies I saw as a kid, as it came out. I was just in that era of getting into horror movies, and we rented it. Absolutely terrified. It's one of those movies that I'll still watch and get scared only because it reminds me of those feelings I had when I watched it when I was a kid. And some part of me is like, what are you doing? This is underwhelming. It's not as good as it used to be. But I think The Ring works, and my favorite format to watch The Ring is VHS, of course. And that's how I recommend you watch it if you have the means. Number 2. This was going to be my number 1 until I decided to add PG movies too. I wasn't strictly going to do PG-13 because, as you all know, I'm sure, PG-13 didn't exist until Temple of Doom. But before we get into all that, let's talk Drag Me to Hell, the amazing Sam Raimi movie from 2009. There aren't words for how much I love this movie. I like it more than some of the Evil Dead movies. It is a excellent watch. It is, again, not something I would think is rated PG-13. But again, it's not super graphic, it's not super gory, but there's definitely horrifying stuff going on in this movie. Like, the ending, Drag Me to Hell will forever hold a special place in my heart. Love this movie. And the number 1, this movie came out in a time period where it was either going to be PG or R. And despite a child being eaten in this movie, it's still PG. Obviously, I'm talking Jaws, the most iconic horror movie maybe of all time. The most iconic movie of all time, perhaps. Depending on who you ask, the best movie of all time. The invention of the modern blockbuster. Jaws is a perfect movie. There isn't nothing else that can be said. Now, is it my favorite movie of all time? No, but it's definitely up there. Jaws kind of has to be the number 1 movie, I feel like, on any list that it's on. It's a spot that it deserves. And if you like this video, be sure to check out this one and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.